Welcome to the Inspiration North podcast, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, being more visible and taking that step with Paula Gardner. We talk about a date that led to her changing her thinking about studying business psychology, how being impatient can help you with achieving your goals, and how she literally chased her first client down the street.
Paula is a careers psychologist and coach who uses psychometrics to help those who are contemplating a midlife career change or facing redundancy and wondering what to do next. She began her career in the music business, doing PR for clients such as George Michael and Bananarama, and then went on to found her own PR and marketing company, helping business owners learn how to do their own PR. In her 40s, she went back to university to do a master's in business psychology, and from then specialised in careers, using her own midlife career change as inspiration. Paula's secret ingredient as a career coach is her previous background in PR and marketing, which means that she can help her clients raise their profile within their workplace or industry. Visibility brings credibility. Okay, Paula, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you've been on the list for ages. So.
Finally made it to the top. Crawled my way up.
You did. So, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
When I was little, it was always a detective. So I grew up reading Secret 7, Famous 5, and Saturday mornings, my parents used to drive to some big supermarkets and take 2 trolleys in and fill it up. It was in the days of, when freezers were new. So they used to do big shops. So me and my sister would sit in the back of the car and read Secret 7s. And I think there was a little bit of psychology in there, that maybe probably started my interest off in psychology. But by the time I was a teenager, psychology was on the list at school. And then one day I went to a careers officer and she asked me what I wanted to do. This was to do at uni, and I said psychology. And she went, oh, if you do psychology, you'll end up either working in a prison or a mental hospital. So I went home and told my parents this. Well, we're not paying for you to go to university to do that. So to end up there. So I was veered off course and I did English literature at uni, which I loved. So it was no bad thing. But it's interesting how that one conversation sort of veered me off a path that I could have been on a lot earlier.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, the power of careers advisors.
Yeah, danger of careers advisors. I was told that because I was a girl, I couldn't do chemistry. I couldn't be not a chemist in a shop, but mixing potions together and
scientist chemistry. Yeah.
So I was almost sciencey. Psychology is quite sciencey. Go down that route.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So English literature degree. Where did you end up with that? Not in a prison.
Not in a prison, no. I ended up. My first job was as a journalist for the local government Chronicle, and I had pictured myself working for Cosmo in New York, in a lovely, streamlined white office with lilies and lots of perfumes and stuff lying around. I ended up working for this local council, was a national newspaper for local councils, going to conferences on how far litter bins should be apart.
Wow.
Yeah, didn't quite live up to what I had been imagining. Yeah.
Not very glamorous then.
Yeah. No, not really. No. But I mean, it was a good grounding. I learned all about proofreading, sub-editing. I mean, in those days, sub-editing was cutting it out and sticking it down on paper. It wasn't on the computer. That came a little bit later. But it was a good grounding. And from then, I went to live in Australia for a couple of years. Couldn't get a job in journalism in Australia. It was in the recession. And those sort of jobs were really hard to come by. And that's how I discovered PR. Never heard of it before. And but very similar skills. That's how I sort of fell into PR over there. That's what I did for 20 years before going into psychology.
So how long were you in Australia for?
2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were quite young when you set up your own business.
Yeah. Well, I came back to here when I was about 23. Worked in PR over here for about a year. That was in music PR. And yeah, then basically set up my own business. And I haven't really been employed by anybody since. So yeah, over a quarter of a century working for myself. Yeah. Don't have to work it out precisely.
Bless you. You've got some really good stories about PR in the music industry.
Yeah. I mean, it was brilliant at that age. Very glamorous, lots of interesting, also I thought at the time, people, lots of money being thrown around. I mean, it was pretty much a dream lifestyle for a few years. Yeah. But it was one of those jobs that it was so glamorous, you paid hardly any money.
Yes, it's like it looks really glamorous, but it's just like, yeah, but I'm really poor.
yeah, one of those ones. Yeah, so you couldn't really sustain it for long unless that was all that you cared about. Yeah.
What's PR's often I find it's an interesting one. It's I like to play the sort of don't know attitude on podcasts. Is how would you describe PR? Because it's something we often hear about, but what actually is it?
Okay, well, so I always compare it to marketing and advertising. So advertising is basically where you are spending money and you're saying something about yourself. Usually, this is great, or this is reliable, or 8 out of 10 cats love it. And marketing is where you are spending money, but it's a little bit less obvious. So you might be doing it through direct marketing, letters coming through, emails. And PR is when actually, so with marketing, again, if you're doing that, you're still saying, we're great, we're reliable, But the point of PR is you're trying to get other people to say it. So to add that credibility. So you're trying to get journalists to try out and review or to interview you and tell your story. So it's all about getting that third party endorsement.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
That's useful. So when you went to set up your own business, was that more of circumstance and the job market or salaries, or was there always this burning passion of just saying, I'm going to work for myself?
Oh, no, I had a horrible boss. Absolutely horrible boss. And I mean, PR is quite a stressful industry, and you can be promised or like a front page or an article on your client, and then something happens and it's taken out, or a 2-page article becomes 2 paragraphs, and it's not your fault because you don't have control. And if that happened, our boss used to let rip in the office. It was take it out on us. So in the end I just thought, I don't want to live with this. And I remember a potential client had arrived at the offices, and for some reason my boss and this person didn't hit it off, and it was really obvious that she wasn't going to take him on as a client. And he left the meeting about 5:00 in the afternoon, and I was going home, so I just got my stuff together really quickly, ran down the street after him and said, I'll do your PR. And that was it. In that moment I had decided to leave, and he was my first client.
That's amazing. It's very brave as well for somebody so young.
Yeah, I mean, it was brave, but it was also desperate in that I was trying to find a way out of there. Yeah. And I hadn't been there that long, so it wasn't the sort of thing where I could go to other agencies and sort of be seen as a career move. There'd be questions asked, but setting up on your own is a nice answer to that, really.
Brilliant.
So you've got your first client. you've chased this person down the street. They've said, okay. Do you then have a realization of sort of, oh crap, I've now just ventured out into the world on my own. What do I do?
Yeah.
How do I go about it? So that kind of reality sets in?
Yeah, I didn't charge him hardly enough, so then I had to find other clients to bring enough money in. I had to spend out on office, just office essentials. So I remember my boyfriend and I going to like a secondhand office warehouse and getting a big fax machine. It's a really heavy thing. Only thing is we only had a motorbike. So he was there in front of this fax machine and I was clinging on to him with this fax machine in between us. So yeah, it was a very, very makeshift sort of start, but it worked. Yeah.
That's good. So what came next then? Did you continue that for a number of years, or because you sort of...
Yeah, so did that for quite a few years, then had kids, and kids sort of changed it all. So pre-kids, I was specialising in restaurants, and so there's a lot of going out in the evenings, a lot of wine and dining and schmoozing, and when I had the kids, that wasn't so easy. So I had to find a way to reinvent myself. And it was actually on a call with a money coach. We came up with the idea of do your own PR. So I then went from doing PR to showing business owners how they could do their PR, which is great because I could do all that from home or one-to-one meetings, but I didn't have to go out to all hours and do it. And that inspired me to write 2 books, get noticed and do your own PR. Yeah, it was a really, really good business model actually for me. Yeah.
What changed and drew you into the world of psychology?
There was a few things going on at the same time. So one was the do your own PR stuff becoming more psychological. So it's quite easy to teach people how to put a press list together, how to research a journalist. But when they don't do it, you start to have to ask why. And I remember I was running a 1-year program with 6 or 7 women at the time. And it was, one of them was flying ahead and doing everything. And there were a few that weren't. And they were always making excuses, like either I haven't got time or, it's not quite ready, being very perfectionist about things. And so I decided to dig underneath. And underneath all of them that weren't doing what they wanted to do, it was confidence. So the confidence issues were really holding them back. So I think that's one of the things that sparked my interest in psychology. Another thing was that one of my clients at the time, and still is, she's a clinical psychologist. So we were having lots of conversations about psychology. And that was sort of growing in the background. And then I was single at the time, so I'd divorced my husband and had started online dating. And it was early days for dating, so all my experiences so far have been nice, no sparks or anything, but just nice people, no horrible, desperate stories. And I'd gone out for a date with this guy who had been a psychologist. He'd been an industrial psychologist for years. And he was 51 and he was retraining to be a barrister. And he had 7 years of studying ahead of him. And he said, even if I qualify when I'm 60, that gives me 10 years of doing something which I know I'm going to love to do. And just in that one evening, so, I was telling him about my interest in psychology. And all along I'd had this idea that there was another Paula who was a psychologist, but in a different life. So have you come across the theory of possible selves? Yeah. So possible selves are all the different selves that we could imagine ourselves to be, and they're there in our head. So, it could be that one of your possible selves is a blogger making their living on a tropical island and, sending in all your bits and pieces from the beach. But so all these things that we imagine that we could be, and one of those was Paula the psychologist. But I'd always sort of thought, in another lifetime. And he challenged me on this. It was really interesting. He said, well, why don't you do it? Oh, I've got 3 kids. I'm a single mum. I've got a business. But the time that I said something like that, it all felt just a bit hollow, and I was just saying it because I was making excuses. And after that conversation, I just decided to go online the next day and have a look at psychology courses. And it just happened that I only looked at my local uni, UEL, and I just thought, oh, I'll just make a phone call. And I spoke to the head of the psychology course there, and he was talking about me doing a conversion course. And I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure about this. And he said, well, actually, thinking about your background, you'd be really suited to business psychology. So I then phoned up his colleague, and it was just instant. Our conversation was like this, sparked so many things that I could have done my dissertation on, and he was telling me what the course involved. And actually, just by the end of the day, I'd filled in the form. and then I got an email from him saying, oh, I've put you forward for funding from the EU, 50% funding. So it just seemed to take a life of its own. And like within a week or so, I was there, I was signed up and about to start. Yeah.
Exciting, isn't it?
And I guess having met all these different people and characters in the PR world and different businesses, different organizations, that all brings lots of experience.
Yeah.
Perhaps, would you say then, if you'd done, let's say you'd not had that careers advisors chat, which diverted away from psychology, how do you think it would have differed if you'd done it first, or if you'd gone into it with all of these sort of 20 odd years of experience?
Yeah, good question. I think if I'd gone into it first, I'd have probably more gone down the clinical route. So my business experience led me to go down the business side. And interestingly, actually on that business psychology, a lot of the stuff we did was careers. And I do have a bit of a bee in a bonnet about that bad careers advice I was given. So it's now like I'm on a mission to put it right for people. Yeah.
It's awesome. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about what your dissertation was really interesting?
Yeah. Well, my dissertation was on sort of altruism, and basically how do organizations attract altruistic people into working with them. And the research that I'd come across was that there are 3 main groups in society. So there were the traditionalists, and these are people who basically want to defend the status quo. They are probably the largest section of society just by a tiny amount. And they are keen on, typical, stereotypical gender roles, traditional jobs, hierarchy. And then the next group will be the modernists, which are close behind them. And the modernists are all about climbing that career ladder. I mean, when I say modernist, I imagine like the 80s sort of shoulder padded suits, and money's their big motivator. Money, prestige, and it's all about getting on and being productive and making shit happen and all this sort of thing. And there's a third group which is growing, and they're called the cultural creatives. And these are people who make the decisions based on their values. So they are eco-friendly, they are concerned about this world after they die, their legacy, they're concerned about diversity, inclusion. But it's not just, we should be doing that. It is proper, these are how we make our decisions. I actually came across it when I was thinking of me and my sister, and I was doing some research into that. So my sister and I, obviously same parents, so same nurture, same nature, just about, or very similar. And so, my career choices were PR, glam, newspapers. I suppose I was driven by the actual job itself, with a little bit of glam and lifestyle in there. Whereas my sister has always worked for NGOs and charities, Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace, that sort of thing. And even now, she still works, for charities or not-for-profits. Yeah, and I was just wondering why are we so different? And that's what prompted me to sort of research and write the dissertation.
Fascinating stuff.
It is.
So you graduated from UEL, and then what was next? What was the transition into being a proper psychologist like?
Well, I was still running the business because I did my MSc part-time. So it's been gradual, really. Got to pay the bills. I think one of the first things that I did was make that sidestep into, was I set up mastermind groups for business owners where we focus on the psychology behind being successful. So things like growth mindset, looking at psychology around productivity, beliefs, values, lots of things that hold people back. And I've also tied in what I do with visibility. So I did a retreat in Verona, took a group of business people out to Verona. Our retreat, well, half of it was on the psychology of being more visible and taking that step and dealing with any confidence issues. And then the other half, I sort of used my little PR experience and brought the how to be more visible into it. So I sort of combine the two now, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. And
even on the career stuff that I do. So a lot of it is with people who are like me, midlife and changing career. And they don't, even though they might have to start at the bottom, they don't really want to have to start at the bottom in terms of reputation and visibility. So a lot of the stuff we do is around, well, how do you get noticed, even if you're quite new in this area? So a lot of the stuff is about being visible then and dealing with confidence issues around that.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a nice combination of the two.
Do you want to talk about the Bitch Network?
Yeah. Again, it's that confidence thing. Yeah. So like I said, a lot of my clients were women who were having issues around getting out there. And underneath all these issues were confidence things. So the Bitch Network is basically all about, it's coaching and articles and workshops and evening events, all about building your confidence up. So addressing things. I mean, it's not do this and do that and lean forward and like tips and tricks. It's more about like getting beneath. So one of the big things that we've spoken about is people pleasing and boundaries and learning to say no, but also learning how to put yourself first, which a lot of women do find difficult. Yeah. So it's actually inspired a book that I've just finished. And Michelle knows all about this because we're in this little huddle together, book writing huddle. And the book is called How to Be a Pushy Bitch. And it is all about that. It's about finding, that inner strength to push yourself forwards. Because I think a lot of women find it easy if we're doing it in defense of somebody else. If we can see somebody else's rights being violated or have to protect our kids, we're there straight away. We don't even think about it. But when it comes to ourselves, we're sometimes a lot less willing to do it. And look at my own story, thinking back to that boss that I had, who was a bit of a bully. I mean, obviously now I can see that she was under a lot of stress and pressure, and it was just coming out. So even with hindsight, I see that at the time I didn't have the skills to deal with her. And I hear that over and over again. There's one of the Bitch Network coaches, Melanie, she had a bullying boss. And she was in a larger company, and she actually went to HR and got overall help from them. So, sometimes we have to deal with these things on our own.
No, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to reading it. It's like James, do not read that book.
It'll all help the business and the charity.
Sure. Awesome. So I remember we were in France when you came up with the name of the network, and it was really stressful that you didn't immediately like to reflect on things, don't you, Paula?
Yeah, I do. I take my time, I ponder, and when I make a decision, that's it. It's set in stone, But Michelle was like, do the domain name.
Somebody's going to have the same idea. I had a sleepless night about Paula not It almost got to the point, it was like, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. Yeah, so it's been really, really good and really interesting.
I like the name as well, though, because it's got a provocative edge to it, but it's sort of, it's not what it's about. It's well, I'm saying that I'm not part of the network, obviously, but another one of those things I'm not allowed to join. But,
oh, you can be a Mitch. You can be a Mitch, can't
but I do like the concept that, yes, I mean, the way society's changed in the last, say, 50 plus years, it's everyone could do with getting out of their own way. And reaching for that potential and actually speaking out for whether it's for what you believe in or something you're passionate about. But I think perhaps in the UK as well, we're not as good as certain countries like the US. They seem to be very good at speaking and promoting themselves. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think we're taught as children to obviously know your place and
be
don't
seen and not
be
heard.
proud.
And if you do, sorry, if you did talk about your achievements and stuff, you were seen as bragging or being smug or and I remember the phrase, someone saying, "Oh, they'll get their comeuppance,"
It's almost like we like to keep people down in this country somewhat. Sometimes
we like the underdog until they're actually successful.
And then the press pulls them down again.
You see what's happened with Joe Wicks, really. It's all right when he's a little cheeky chappy, but then when he's now uber successful and doing lots of good and raising lots of money for the NHS, literally you see the papers gunning for him. It's an awful trait.
It is. It's not a nice side of us at all, is it?
No. And you can go back to sort of caveman days and understanding that the whole people pleasing and fitting in, it was a survival mechanism that people got within us. But it's as a society, we just sometimes the world sucks.
Is that, I wonder, I mean, it's a very deep thought for a Wednesday morning, but is it, obviously, if there wasn't a demand for such sort of news and gossip and bringing people down, is that a way for those who've not strived and haven't gone after their potential and to achieve more, is that a way of justifying, well, I'm happy that we've brought this person down because that justifies me then not getting up and doing something?
I think you're totally right there. I think it plays into us feeling safe too, doesn't it? So, oh, my goodness, I didn't do that because I'm nice and safe here and people aren't going to say that about me. Yeah, but you're right, it keeps us down. Yeah, well, even the fear of it keeps us down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've had I've talked to both of you about, there's certain professionals in our industry that almost play that role of, I'm gonna disagree with what you're saying. Where's the evidence? And it's almost these people are almost stifling the psychology world because psychologists, I've spoken to so many psychologists that are scared of speaking up and having opinions because just in case, what would these self-appointed police?
Exactly.
What would they say? Like, well, it's a really quick and easy. It took me a while, but just block them. They can't see what you're writing. Go mental. You don't have to receive their feedback.
No. I mean, let's face it, look at all the scientists who are putting their things about coronavirus out there. They don't care, do they?
No.
There's always with science, I can't remember who taught me that when I was younger, that you can almost, any hypothesis you can try and prove is good or bad one way. I mean, over the years, it always makes me joke because my mum always talks about things like eggs. They should be kept in the fridge. No, they shouldn't be kept in the fridge. And they're good for you. No, they're not good for you. And it changes about every 10 years. Even with simple things like that, we can't agree on. So
I found the food when I was pregnant with Oliver and when he was little, the overwhelming advice arguing both ways, food, sleep, attachment, all that stuff. It was like almost, you know what, I'm just going to stop listening to all of this stuff. My grandparents kept my mum alive, and that was before the internet. So you use your instinct, I think.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said about instinct, actually. Quite often, you must have this, Michelle, with the psychometrics. When you go into organisations and you're looking at, recruitment and so on, there's still instinct still matters, doesn't it? Even with all the psychometric tests, you still need to take instinct into account.
Yeah, and it's difficult, I suppose, when you're talking about selection and assessment, because it's the whole cultural fit. That side of things, and it's like, well, if you don't know what the culture is and you haven't measured the culture, how do you know what a culture fit is? And are you choosing, you want to disrupt the culture? Or you just choosing somebody you quite like to go to a pub with, or so it's really, you have to be very self-aware, I think, to be in, to be a hiring manager, and having those conversations with yourself. This person seems like a really good chap, because this person's really good at interviews. But yes, it's a fascinating world, and I think with some sciences it's really easy, right or wrong. H2O, you can't really argue with that. But psychology, humans aren't predictable. And I think that's what makes the world of psychology so much fun as well, because there's always a surprise. People are always going to go, why did that happen? It's interesting.
Yeah, but every time I do, work with a company, there's always somebody that has got something I haven't, something new. They bring something new to the table that I have to go and look up, or there's always learning. Yeah.
Yes, there is. So do you want to go to, can I ask the first one?
Yep. Is this the quick fire questions? Fingers on the buzzer.
Fingers on the buzzer. It's not answers on a postcard, as it's quick fire. So question number 1, Michelle, take it away.
What is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you while working at your job?
Oh my God. The weirdest thing that has happened to me, I think it was when I was doing some psychometric assessments for an organisation, and so after you've done that, you have a one-to-one with everybody who's done their assessments. And there was one chap that we were talking about his profile and so on, and he had quite, I didn't actually say this to him, but he had quite narcissistic traits come up in his profile, and we were talking around this, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh well, you can tell them what you want about me, but I know where the bodies are buried."
Oh my God!
Yeah.
See, I've never had that one. How did you get yourself out of that situation?
I think it sparked quite an interesting conversation, actually. Yeah.
It's like
pressing the red button under the desk.
Send in the guards.
Yeah. But because usually people are like, "Oh, what does it say about me? What does that mean? What does that mean for my job?" and so on. But he was, he was very calm and feeling, doesn't matter. Whatever you say, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's not who you know, it's what you know about who you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
So question number 2, what is invisible but you wish people could see?
Oh, kindness. Actually, I think it's really underrated, the quality of kindness. And I think it's modern life. We are so busy that it's not that we are unkind. It's that often we don't stop to think about how to be kind. And when I see kindness in people, I really notice it. Yeah. And it'd be great if there was some sort of shimmery thing that showed how kind somebody was, and then we'd all try and be a little bit kinder.
Like everyone could read everyone's auras, I suppose.
Yeah.
I like that.
Awesome. So question number 3, what do most people think about you that's absolutely not true?
Oh wow. It's absolutely not true. Well, also that supposes I know what people think about me. I suppose it's that quite a common one actually is it works both ways though. So the luck and hard work. Sometimes, so for instance, getting my first book published, getting a publisher is not an easy thing to do nowadays. I don't think it ever has been. And people said to me, "Oh, it must have been, really hard work to find a publisher." But actually, it was luck. I'd actually decided I wanted to publish my first book, and then it was a business networking Christmas dinner, and the person that I sat down next to was a publisher. So she unfortunately had to sit and listen to me pitch to her the whole of Christmas lunch, and I got my publisher that way.
You wore it down, well done.
Yeah. So I suppose it's that, as in people thinking it was hard work, but actually it was luck. But then the flip side of that is people thinking, oh, you were lucky, but they don't see the hard work that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, you sent me a book about that, didn't you? In terms of it takes 10 years of graft to be an overnight success.
Yeah. And I know on your show I was listening to with Wendy Kendall, and she was talking about the newsletter for the horse's newsletter for the feed. And she was saying, if I'd have persevered, then that could have been really big now. And I think that's what it is, the hard work, the perseverance that goes into things. People don't tend to see that unless you've built up a business or done it yourself. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes, do you?
No, and that's where the comparison comes in as well, isn't it? It's like, well, I'm never going to be like X, Y, and Z because, they've got all of this help and support. Like we were talking about the other day, my little boy was it's like, oh, you've only got 17 YouTube subscribers to James, and he was a little bit kind of taken back. So, well, everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Even Justin Bieber and your favourite Fortnite streamer Ninja, he created an account with 0 subscribers. So, a little reminder for him. In your face, Oliver. You can listen to this in a few years' time.
I think that is the thing about social media, though. It is so obviously measurable, isn't it? It almost defines your worth in that arena. And if you start with 0 subscribers and after 2 weeks you've still got 0 subscribers, it's really difficult not to feel a failure, even if you've been putting things out. Yeah.
You've got 20 now. Woohoo!
Well, I think the story, I forget who it was. It goes back to Justin Bieber as well, is it? You never know which of those videos, in his case, was seen by a record producer that got him his break in his career. So I've almost reached a point of, we get our usual serial fans, our family, close friends, and that's growing. But I'm conscious that it's just consistency, and eventually the general upward trend is there, and eventually someone will pick it up. And then rather than be like, oh, we've got no content, it's like, crikey, these guys have got 20.
There's loads of things for us to catch up on. You've actually identified something which it's another one of my bugbears. So in coaching, a lot of it is all about goals, isn't it? What are your dreams? What's your vision? What are your goals? And there's always this magic idea that if you set your goals and you'll get there, or the way will come, and all this sort of thing. But actually, it's the processes that matter more than the goals in a way. They're the things that you're doing along the way. If you don't get those right, you're not going to reach them. And if you don't find some joy in doing them as well, you're not going to keep them up.
Yes, it's really important.
So our last question, we can jump in the DeLorean and take you back to your 18-year-old self. What advice would you give her?
Another good question. I think she was quite impatient, but then actually I'm still quite impatient. What advice advice would I give her? I think I would remind her to enjoy things more. I think that impatience makes you quite goal orientated. So the opposite of what I was saying just now. So I can spot it in myself. And so to give you an idea, when I was 18, I went on a interrailing trip. And have you guys ever been interrailing?
No.
Well, kind of with school randomly. Trains to get somewhere in Germany, yeah.
I can't remember how much it was, but you paid something like, it was, I don't know, in those days it was about 160 quid, and you could basically travel around Europe on any train, apart from the very, very, expensive ones where you paid extra, for a month. It's changed now. You only get a certain number of days in the month. But basically, I think we tried to visit almost every country in Europe, and we went over to Morocco, and we caught the ferry over to Corfu, and we just spent that whole month on a train so that we could tick all these countries off, which back now is absolutely ridiculous, because I basically spent 160 quid, which was about £500 in those days, to spend a month on a train.
But you got the countries ticked off.
Yeah, it was ticked off, but the quality wasn't quite there. Yeah.
So advice to your 18-year-old self is
just
pick a couple places, enjoy Italy. Yes. Yeah. Awesome. So if somebody likes the sound of you and wants to know more, where's the best place to find you on the internet?
So website, scarletthinking.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at Paula Gardner. Those are the two main places.
Awesome. It's been absolutely a delight to have you on the podcast. So thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode, when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway and tell everybody.